Barry, John, Diane, Corinne, Evelyn, Barbara, Captain Paul, Joe, Donna, Francis, and Liz. So we have a really nice group here this morning in person. Good morning and welcome all to Humanists of the Treasure Coast. Yesterday we had a wonderful picnic. I just have to tell you, we had such a good time. I have to thank Greg Jarrett. He's not online, but Greg, he scouts out these places to make sure they're good for us, these park locations. He advertises them. He reserves the space. Then on the day of the picnic, he brings all the stuff we need to set up, the banners, the tablecloths. He brings it all, carts it all out to the place, sets it up, and then helps take it all down. And so Barry goes too. So Barry was there as well, helping to set up. And we really just had a wonderful time. We had a lot of young couples with kids, and it was right next to a playground. So all the kids were out on the playground. So I just wanted to let you know about that. It was a really nice afternoon, beautiful weather.
Joanne, can I add a shout out to Barry? This guy,
Yeah.
boy, this guy can really do the miles. I found out he lives up there north with you guys, like Port St. Lucie. Went to the picnic.
Bluetooth is waiting
then-
for connection.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then, I don't know, he did something else in the morning, something else in the afternoon, and then drove all the way down to Palm Beach International Airport last night. I saw him, we met welcoming the honor flight back from Washington, D.C. And of course, the flight was delayed. And, I don't think the whole thing was over till almost 10 o'clock at night. So
Yeah.
he's got a lot of energy, that guy, I just want to say.
Yeah, humanists doing their thing. Yeah, very grateful for Barry.
Yes.
And I saw Barry last night as I came back from the honor flight I was a guardian on the honor flight. It was an awesome day.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's great, John.
Fantastic. All right. This morning, my opening words are our core values. We had a new gentleman who came at the picnic yesterday who lives over on Hutchinson Island, and he said he was going to be here today. And it was like his first time reaching out to humanists, and he said, I'm going to come to your meeting tomorrow, but he hasn't shown up, but I think we're going to hear from him again at some point. Anyway, so for my opening words, I want to do our humanist core values. I haven't read these for a while, and I think it's good to touch base with them every once in a while, lest we forget. We use reason and compassion to both understand the world and develop personal morality. We are non-religious, but not anti-religion. We are committed to creating an inclusive, supportive community for humanists, atheists, agnostics, and free-thinking individuals and humanist families along the Treasure Coast. We believe that all topics and ideas should be open for discussion and that all points of view have a right to be heard in a respectful manner. We are committed to improving the public perception of humanism and correcting misconceptions through education and community service. We believe that people of all races, religions, genders, nationalities, and sexual orientations must work together to solve problems in our world and within our community. We believe in living life in the here and now while protecting the earth and all its inhabitants for future generations. We support the separation of church and state. We are committed to the principles of democracy and nonviolence within humanists of the Treasure Coast and society at large. Just a friendly reminder of what we're all about. Announcements. One of the first announcements I want to make is that the Interfaith Coalition in Stewart was going to have an interfaith Thanksgiving program on November 23rd, and they've decided to cancel that. We've, for some reason, had problems hearing back from ministers of their commitment to do it. So we had an initial commitment, and then we couldn't hear back from them. And Roberta Scott, who's with the Unity Church, and Unity Church sponsors this, they allow us to use their space. she became so discouraged when she didn't hear back from people. She said, I'm not doing this. I'm just going to cancel it. She goes, oh, and by the way, and when do you guys meet? So she's going to show up here. She's been here a couple of times, but she's just a little disheartened. So she canceled it. So just so you know that, it's unfortunate. Anyway, here we go. Announcements. Saturday, November 8th from 4 to 6, we are having a happy hour at Captain Hiram's Resort in Sebastian. That's at 1580 Route 1 in Sebastian. So we're going to be up north for all of you members who are up in the north part of the Treasure Coast. Again, that's Captain Hiram's Resort in Sebastian, 4 to 6 on November 8th. Our Vero Beach Holiday Arts and Craft Expo, that's going to be November 22nd. That's a Saturday from 10 to 5, and November 23rd from 10 to 4. That is at the Indian River County Fairgrounds, 7955 58th Avenue in Vero Beach. We're looking for people to help us staff the booth. If you live up that way, or if you're willing to drive up that way, we would appreciate your help to help staff the booth in the morning and afternoon. So you can go online and RSVP if you're willing to do that. So that would really be helpful. On Thursday, November 27th, we're having the annual HMTC Friendsgiving. The people who would like to get together for Thanksgiving, who don't have family gatherings themselves or another place to be, you can log on to our website, RSVP. You can RSVP as a host if you want to host people, or you can RSVP as a guest. And once we get all the people signed up, Greg will do this, put people together, and you'll have a place to be on Thanksgiving, and that's the point of the whole thing. So hopefully you can hang out with other humanists for the holiday. So today, our humanist secular moment is going to be presented by me. We just lost somebody. Who did we lose? Okay. And this is different than the typical humanist secular moments that we have, because I'm focusing on conflict. Where there are people, the possibility of conflict is likely. From time to time within our organization, some members experience conflicts with one another, and I often hear about these conflicts. I appreciate hearing about them because I do worry about the health and viability of our community all the time. But I try not to intervene, not because I don't care, and I want to make sure people understand this. It's not because I don't care, but it's because I think it's best for people to come together and resolve their issues between them without a third party that would possibly triangulate the situation. So I think working directly with each other when we have conflict is the best way to resolve things. I've done conflict management in my career. This in a business setting, so we would have a team that had to be high functioning. Two people aren't getting along. I would go in, I would sit with them, I would intervene. I would try to get them to focus on what they had in common, what their common goal was, to get them back on track and be willing to work together. But I don't want to do that with this group. I could, but I don't want to, because I really want people to reach out to each other. I think it's the best course for people to work together. I recall so many times that Joe Beck has said to this group in the past, and I'm paraphrasing, if humanists of the Treasure Coast were to fail, the problem would be caused not from outside forces, but from within. Our demise would come from arguing, infighting, being disrespectful of one another, not listening to one another, or not seeking to understand each other. When I belonged to the Unitarian Universalist Church, which I did for many years, I think people know that, we talked to our members about the importance of what we called being in right relationship with one another. We even had open discussions on what that meant and how you could do that. How could you be in right relationship with one another? It didn't mean to pretend that everything was okay. when a person harbored dislike or resentment over some conflict, it didn't mean acquiescing to something that really troubled you. It did mean not withdrawing, not avoiding each other, but rather within a reasonable time to reach out to one another to seek an understanding of the other person's position and investing time and energy to resolve the issue for each other's sake and for the good of the organization, for the good of the community. Unresolved anger, discontent, resentment among members can be caustic to any organization. I urge each of you, if you have a conflict with one another, when you are ready, reach out to them, reach out to the other person, find your common ground, which I hope is being a humanist, right? And look to better understand each other and hopefully find a resolution to the issue that you're facing. Drew and I can help facilitate. If you think you need somebody, I just volunteered you, Drew.
Thank you.
Well, he helps me. He helps me. I mean, I depend on Drew a lot. But like I said, I think it's best for parties to resolve issues among themselves. Like in our programming, we focus on a lot of topics, a lot of political topics, a lot of other topics that are of interest to us. But we don't really talk a lot about how to best be in community with each other. And maybe we need to spend a little bit of time on that, to strive to be respectful, to be kind, to be non-judgmental, to be loving. In our value statement that I just read, we talk about a belief in the worth and dignity of all people. And that value needs to resonate within our own organization. My final message in the humanist secular moment is, let's help each other be the best humanists that we can be. So thank you for listening to my little talk. I tell my family, do not text me on Sunday morning. So anyway, so we have an open topic today. The discussion is setting boundaries with fervently religious people. So it's open discussion. And this whole topic came about at a program committee meeting where we were talking about an event that, I don't know, Francis, if you're ready to share. Francis opened up the discussion with an experience that she had with a religious individual that she found difficult to deal with. And as she described it to the committee, we thought that might be something worth discussing. So we can learn from each other how best to handle these situations. So are you willing to share your story with a larger group? Can we pass the mic to Francis, and we're going to open up with her just so you can kind of get a feel for how this topic came about.
Hold on. Okay, it's all my fault.
It's your inspiration. It's not your fault.
Well, so I pull dead animals off the road to prevent secondary strikes by carrion eaters. But also if it's cats and dogs, so that, possible owners don't see them like that. So I pulled this dead cat off of Port St. Lucie Boulevard in front of a daycare center, Dayton Daycare or something like that. And I usually just put them in the bushes or somewhere off in the grass. But so when I did that, a woman, one of the teachers, I guess school was letting out, and she saw me do that. Oh, no, her husband, he was waiting for her. And he came over and he said, oh, that's very nice that you did that. I'm very sorry to see that. I need to let my wife know. So apparently this mama cat had babies, and they had found homes for all the babies. And this teacher, who I would soon meet, had not had an opportunity to catch her yet, the mom. Well, this is who I dragged off the road. So she was beside herself, and she saw me put it in the grass, and she couldn't have it. she said she couldn't have vultures or anything eating her, you know. But I didn't know she was going to say this at first. She wanted to say some words over the kitty. So I just asked them if they had a box, and I put her in the box. And she said so I stepped away to let her have her time with the kitty. But she wouldn't let me let Mother Earth take the kitty back, which is the natural thing to do, right? No, she wanted me to take her, I don't know where, but she had a cross on. She couldn't have the kitty in the elements. I had to do something with her. And let me tell you, this kitty was a stinky mess. The poor thing, it'd been there for a while. And so I said she wanted me to bury it in the box somehow so vultures couldn't get it. This is her belief. And so I was on my way to work, but I stood by, let her say some words over the kitty from God. And then I asked him for a plastic bag because this thing had to go into my car. And so I put it in a bag, dripping. I put it in the box, and I opened all the windows in my car, and I had to drive around because how was I going to bury this poor thing? I looked for a trash dump thing behind stores. And so finally I found one that I didn't think anyone would see me throw this box in, thinking I was some drug person. It was horrible. I spent a whole hour or two trying to handle this thing. But I told this story just because I did it for this woman so that she wouldn't be upset. And I guess it came up like fervently. I don't even know how to end this story. You take it from there. What a mess.
Yeah, I don't know if I can take it from there, but it really has to do with people of a different faith trying to impose their will on other people to do their bidding of how they would like to see a situation be handled. That's how I kind of viewed it. And how did you feel about that?
Well, two things. Angry because Mother Earth is much better at reabsorbing life and death than a dump truck, like a trash can. And I knew that it just seemed like it dishonored the animal. But yet for her, this is how she had, so I get angry. And as a humanist, I know I'm not supposed to be anti-religion, but I felt very anti-religious at this moment. And it kind of soured half of my day, and then I had to move on. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but I couldn't just say, lump it, lady. I didn't know how to not do it the way I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And you're a very caring person all the way around. So I get how your response was. I probably wouldn't have been that gracious, but maybe that's my lacking.
Me either. What would you have done?
Wait a minute, I'm going to go to people who have their hand up, but then I'll answer that, Juanita. Irene.
I just had a quick little experience last night. So at this Palm Beach International Airport, hundreds and hundreds of people are lining the walkway where the veterans would come through once they deplaned. And they had live music, they had the bagpipes, they had all this stuff. But at one point they call up this Baptist minister to give an invocation or something, and he goes on and on about God, and I refused to bow my head. I had scrolling through my phone at the time, and whatever he was saying about, God, 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 his last line is the one that really got my ire up. And he says, and we do this, or we say this in Jesus's name, in the name of Jesus. And that was the end of it. So once the band started playing again, and I saw him standing alone, I approached him and I said, excuse me. I didn't give him any title. I don't know what the hell he is. I said, your invocation all about God, God, God. Okay, fine. You assume everybody here is a Christian, but why did you have to end on the name of Jesus? Do you realize how many Jews are in this crowd? Maybe Muslims, maybe non-believers. Why did you have to go that far and insult him? And he says, "Well, I am Jewish," and he announced himself as a Baptist preacher, and he starts babbling to me in Hebrew, so he's trying to tell me that, but he never answered my question. I said, "Oh," I just walked away. I said, "This is hopeless." He
Just a
just
piece of shit.
completely ignored the
How
fact.
bizarre.
Yeah, he was nuts. He
That's
was trying to tell me, I guess, that he was converted and that made him even better, but he completely missed my point. But man, I can't stand that this
converted.
religious crap in a public setting, you know? Ugh.
He converted from Judaism to Christianity.
He said, I am a Jew, and he starts babbling at me in Hebrew. And I just walked away. I said, no, it's got nothing to do with what you did. So bye.
You know,
Yeah.
it may not have hit him at that moment, but you may have given him something to think about.
Oh,
You may
God,
have
that would be
opened a
wonderful.
door.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So Juanita, I'm going to answer your question right quick. I think what I would have done was given it over to the woman and said, please dispose of it the way that works for your conscience.
Yep.
And I would have gotten in my car and driven away.
Smart move right there. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I would have done. That's not a criticism, Francis, because I know what a tenderhearted person you are.
But see, I don't think fast in the moment.
I don't think fast anymore either, but see, in second thought, I can come up with it.
I
Paul, you,
agree, Francis. You went above and beyond the call of any duty.
Juanita, you're muted.
I was just going to support you and say, well, now we all know how to handle it in the future.
Right? That's why we're having this discussion. Paul Iris, you're up next.
I would have explained to the woman that she was disrespecting God because God created a natural order. He created those vultures, and they have to eat too. That's how they survive, and that's the order of life.
Well,
And,
she was clutching her cross and crying, and so I don't know that would have gone over
Well,
very.
she was reacting emotionally, but you have to try to appeal to her logic that she was disrespecting God. If she believes in God, then she must respect God's order.
Yeah, but Paul, maybe she didn't want the vultures eating the cat in front of the kids in that school. Maybe he was just doing somewhere else.
Well, that's why, Francis was moving the carcass to a more discreet place.
I think the teacher should have removed the carcass. If she didn't want it there and she wanted to do something with it, she should have taken charge of it.
Well, that's fine too. I agree with you that if she didn't, want to cooperate, then you just leave it in her hands.
That was
So
a
now-
teacher?
She was a teacher, yeah.
Okay, that's different
Now,
than what
now we
I
know.
thought.
Now we all know what to do if we run into a dead carcass and a Christian.
They're one and the same.
Hopefully an animal dead carcass. Gloria,
Okay, I would have done what Francis did.
oh,
Put the cat in the box and get the hell out. I mean, just take the cat away. She put the cat on this woman's territory, right? And a woman says, "Get the cat out of here." That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Unfortunately, she had to run into some sort of religious turbulence in order to get that done. But I think just taking the cat away was fine, and finding another thing to do with the cat is easier than dealing with people with Jesus crosses on and stuff. So, but also I have my own story about, it's not religious intolerance, but I had a good friend who was recently killed in a car accident, but she was
Sorry.
a good friend to me, and she was very religious Catholic, and of the type, the old school type. She volunteered at Catholic services. she gave out food all the time to the hungry in this area. She was always at the food kitchen once a week. She always went there. She was on the church committee for social issues and social consciousness. And she never proselytized any of that. The rest of us were all atheists, right? Her husband was an atheist. So she never like tried to convert us or lecture to us or anything. And we didn't lecture to her either. But one time I did ask her after the sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, how can you still stay in the church after all of that? You know, after all we know, not only about the abuse, but the cover up by the church, which involves the entire organization. And I was surprised that she stayed in the church after that, because she has that kind of consciousness. And she said, well, it really isn't about the bigger church. She said, this is my community. My community is in my church. I mean, she literally walked to her church from her house. She said, and I would have to give up all my community activities with that church. So she stayed devoted. Not only that, when she was working at the food kitchen, she fell down one time and broke her arm and tore her rotator cuff and injured her leg. And we thought, well, that's it. She won't go back to the food kitchen. No, she healed herself right up and went right back to the food kitchen under Catholic services. So it's a way for, you know, so I lived with a woman like that. I was very close to a woman like that, and we just found ways to coexist. She knew the rest of us in the group were all atheists. None of us went to church, and including her husband. But somehow she was what I guess many people would say is you're the kind of Christian you'd want to see. She believed in helping people and doing good things for people, and none of us could criticize that. So we just coexisted.
That's a nice story, Gloria. Thanks for sharing that. While you mention somebody being injured, I need to let you know that I got a text from Karen Vena. Karen Vena took a fall in her garden and broke her pelvis and her lower spine.
God. Oh, God. Let's pray for her.
Break it?
No, I talked to her this morning.
Okay, take the microphone and give us an update, Diane.
There was a crack there, but they're not doing anything. She doesn't need any surgery or anything like that. She just needs 4 to 6 weeks rest. She's on oxycodone, and she said she's fine as long as she gets her drug, she's okay. So we're really glad
What
that
about
it
her
wasn't.
spine? She told me
Yeah.
the spine as well.
Let me, okay, let me just look at precisely what she said. Let me just check. I'm not sure. Okay, what she said was,
I cracked my pelvis and tailbone. Was in the hospital for 4 days. Pain is awful when the oxy wears off. And she said it'll take 4 to 6 weeks to heal. Nothing to be done but time.
Okay, I think the oxy makes you a little bit crazy because she told me she was in the hospital for 12 days. I told her, she's
Yeah.
in our writers group, and I texted her back. I said, maybe this is going to help you with your creative writing. You're on the oxycodone anyway. So she is resting at home, and she's using a walker, and she is, you know, I think in those instances, they have you continue to be mobile. So she is being mobile as best as she can. But I wanted to let you all know about that.
Excuse me, Joanne, can I respond to Gloria one thing?
Yes, please.
I was just going to say, your friend could do all those things with non-religious groups, you know, every one of those things, food pantries. And, you know, I hate when people use religion like they're the only people in the world who help other people, you know, just, you can find community anywhere. That's all I want to say.
But not the history.
But not the history. Could you pass the microphone back to Drew, please?
Thanks. I was just going to say a couple things. First of all, that we should all congratulate ourselves for joining the food pantry last month. And apparently, because of the SNAP program not going through this month, it's been very helpful. We did it right in time. The other thing is with conflict, you know, people have conflict all the time, and even humanists. So it's something to be aware of. And the other thing I was going to say about with dealing with somebody that's fervently religious, I always like to think I can reason with them, but I've come to the conclusion that when people are fervently believe something, you're not going to reason them out of it. It's just not really possible. But you can always produce a good argument and let it sit, and maybe walk away, and maybe they'll revisit it. But certainly anger is not going to change them. That's for sure. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
But what about in terms of them trying to impose their perspectives on you?
Well, that's, and that comes across, not, I don't see, I would love for, people to come and try to impose it, and I would, fight back. I love that kind of situation personally on a one-to-one basis. But what I've come to conclude is, and I never used to think, but churches and they're kind of businesses. They're businesses. They're in the business of making money and producing ideologies and promoting them. And I never used to think of churches that way, but now I look at them. They have bottom lines. They try to produce people. They try to have programs, and they have an ideology. And I have to look at them as a lot of them. That doesn't mean the people in them are not decent people. Some of them are out for personal gain. Yeah, and I never used to think of religions like that. Anyway.
I wonder if parishioners in these churches think of it that way.
No, they don't.
They don't.
No, when I was going to Catholic church, I would never thought of the Catholic Church as being in business. That would be the last thing I would think of.
Let's go to Juanita and then Irene. Juanita.
Well, I think the religious are serious about what they believe, and they've grown up that way. And yes, it will have consequences, but I think you set the example yourself about what you believe and try to get along. We can offend easily, but it's interesting to say, how can we approach them? What words do we use to just open a conversation about particular issues? And that's where we are. We have many issues in life today. And how can we work together and solve any of them?
Thank you, Juanita. Irene.
Excuse me. Well, I don't care how religious somebody is, as long as they're not affecting other people in a negative way, and certainly not affecting me. But, on holidays or Christmas time, I have to go stay with my Holy Roller Catholic sister. And, she goes to church and does her thing fine, but this saying grace at every meal, I don't do anything. It's her house. She can do what she wants. I just respect it. I don't pick up my fork and start eating, But I have another couple down here. We go out to eat, and they say it's grace in a restaurant, and that really makes me uncomfortable. And I don't know what. I'm not going to say anything. I don't know. It takes 7 seconds or something to say grace. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, but I just so tempted to ask them, where's your invisible friend, and how is he blessing your food right now, and all of you? I don't know, it just makes me crazy. That's the line I draw. I feel like they're imposing their thing on me. And if I ever said something like, oh, you want to say grace, rub a dub dub, thanks for the grub, yay God, but think how insulted they would be. So I just don't understand that. They seem to have this higher perspective, that they're somehow better than us. That's the feeling I get. Or they're closer to God, they have the secret, they know. Oh boy, I don't know how to handle it, especially looking ahead at 2 weeks at my sister's house in December.
Yeah, and I think the point of this discussion is that interaction, that personal interaction with people, people are fervent religiosity who try to
Right.
impose their perspectives on you or, you know, but the other thing for me is when these religious perspectives, like with Christian nationalists, impose their will in policymaking.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
that's where we really suffer a lot. And I think we really have to stand firm and we really have to be involved and speak out.
Yeah,
And that's,
that's when you step up and have to hope the right people, you know, are running for positions where it matters, like on school boards, you know, and town councils and stuff.
right.
Oh, boy. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to weigh in? Diane, could you pass Diane? Oh, you have it.
Yeah,
okay.
they did a really interesting poll recently, and they asked the American public what they thought the main issues in our country are. And the first one was economics, which we expect. The second one, and this goes to what you were saying at your humanist moment, was political division. And this goes along with conflict and meeting people. And it's been observed, and I think this is true, that we have less problem with people that have a different religion from us than we do with people of a different political viewpoint from us. And that's where we see some real intolerance going on. We're not willing to talk to each other. Everybody's becoming much more siloed in their information. We don't want to hear what anyone else has to say. And as a Democrat, I'm saying this is why we need to make the Democratic Party bigger, allowing more viewpoints of more kinds in, or we're going to just silo ourselves out of existence. And I just want to say, I think there's some relevance to this. I mean, I don't care if people say grace or not, doesn't affect me. I don't mind. They say it in a restaurant. People were saying grace behind me in a restaurant the other day. Didn't bother me. I don't get it. I don't bother about that stuff. But I think we do need to think a little bit more about, you know, how to, what you were saying about being respectful for other viewpoints and listening. Democrats have a reputation being very preachy and being very, we know better than you. And if you're only better educated, you'd be more like me. And if we stop that attitude, we don't start listening to other people, we're going to continue to become more and more irrelevant. And that's exactly what is happening right now.
Thank you, Diane.
Not just the Democrats that do that. I just spoke from the other side. It's the Republicans and the religious ones who do it. Think they're better than us.
Doreen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm on Oxy too, so take this as you will. I am living on the property of my niece, who is a Jehovah Witness. And she knows my beliefs, I know hers. We just don't have a conflict. She's inside at her Jehovah Witness meeting on Zoom right now. We work things out. But both people have to be into working it out.
If you were to identify your common ground, what would you call that, your common ground with this?
Oh, everything else. She's a wonderful person. She's loving and giving, and you know, I feel like she doesn't have enough. I want to do things for her. She's just a great person.
Okay. Can you pass the mic down to Captain Paul, please? And then we'll go to Linda and then Jim. Captain Paul. So to get you in the frame here.
I just wanted to pick up on something Drew said about the church being a business. My wife and I have a very dear friend, Lorraine. Actually, I brought her to one of our meetings because she lives in Maine. And I don't know what her official title is, whether they have a board of directors or what in her church, but she's had a years-long mission, if you will, to declare her church to be open and welcoming. And she was warned that they would lose parishioners if they pushed this policy. And she kind of kept working with her board and whatnot, so they did. And sure enough, they lost some members. However, they gained some members who came in from other neighboring churches and said, oh, we heard that your church is open and welcoming, and that's the way we would like to be. So it's interesting how she did see it as a as a business, if you will, that membership was important, but she saw that what she believed was more important. And she stuck with that. And as it turned out, that's worked out very well. But so Drew's thing about churches being a business rang true to me, that yes, in the back of their minds, people do watch this sort of thing. So,
Thank you. We're going to go to Linda next.
So, a couple of comments. I was raised in the United Methodist Church, and my younger sister, is still heavily involved in that in our hometown church. Um, but at her house, and she hosts Sunday dinners most weeks. She knows I'm not religious anymore. Um, and my brother is kind of not actively religious anymore. So she doesn't, there's not a grace before the meal except maybe on Thanksgiving. Um, and, we just have a mutual respect for each other. I mean, she's a wonderfully kind person who does a lot in the community. I mean, she just gives of herself so much. And I really admire her and I just think the mutual respect and tolerance needs to be there for everyone. I do struggle with things like recently I volunteered at this Tunnels to Towers run in Vero Beach. It's grew out of the 9/11 tragedy. And so a lot of firemen, they run this 5K in their full gear. It's really a very moving thing. But this was my first year volunteering there, just handing out food at the end, the food that had been donated. And there is an invocation at the beginning, and everyone, that seems like, it's just a little heavy-handed. I understand where it comes from, but, I'm sure I don't remember all the wording, but I'm sure Irene at the end, was in Jesus' name, and, everybody just, bowed their heads and so forth. I was looking around at people, and, clearly not everyone was into it, but it just seemed like this was historically what had happened at this event every year. And I don't quite know what to do about that except to just be respectful of the event. But, I tend to be I avoid conflict almost at all costs. And so I just stayed quiet. But those kinds of things are, bothersome when there's a public event and there's lots of people with lots of different religious or non-religious backgrounds, so that there's one viewpoint kind of chosen to be displayed.
Right. Thank you. Jim Burns, and then we're going to go to Barry. Jim.
Yes, thank you. I thought that the monthly letter you sent out the other day was pretty relevant to this, because you were talking about a new, I forget what it's called, an agency or an investigative department that the federal government is setting up that basically is looking for people who don't toe the line, or organizations who don't toe the line. And you listed about 4 things that towing the line would mean. One was doing anything that could be considered anti-Christian, as I recall, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Not anti-religious, anti-Christian.
Anti-Christian, anti-American. I'd like to know how that definition goes down.
Yeah, anti-American, and it was pretty broad, and I think we know what that means. I think our organization would be one they would look at as being hostile to Christianity, even though we say we're not, as you pointed out at the beginning. I don't think we really are. But because the government is now looking at groups of people who they think are hostile to not to religion, but to Christianity specifically, I would think synagogues would fall into that category for some people's minds. Certainly Islam and all their religions would fall into that category. And we have to, I think this is relevant to today because what we were talking about are all these instances where, because of their religion, people feel privileged in imposing that on others who are not participants in their religion. But now if the government is actually going to start categorizing groups of people who are, they deem anti-Christian, this is taking that privilege to a whole new level that is becoming institutionalized at the federal government. And that's kind of a final degree of this privileging of religion. So I think it's important in all these little cases that we not just roll over too easily and play dead when they say, now let us pray and let us hold, like somebody talked about invocations at lunch. So does that mean it's okay for them to say, let's all hold hands at this table while we pray? Because that happens a lot too. Let us bow our heads and hold hands and say, Grace, you see that in restaurants all the time. What about the people who don't wish to participate? So they're privileging religion personally in all these cases, but now even the government is starting to privilege it. So this is an important issue for us. That's all I had.
Yeah, that NSDM 7 may or may not hold up in court.
What's that?
That presidential NSDM 7 that Donald Trump signed may not hold up in court. We can only hope that, because I don't know how you can say, you know, they're identifying anti-Americans. What is that? What constitutes an anti-American? Anybody who disagrees with the current administration?
I agree with you. It should not possibly hold up in court. But the fact is they're doing this stuff.
Right.
And we've got high-paid lawyers and people on the staff there who are actively doing this. And it's the same stuff that Mussolini and other dictators have done in the past. The exact same stuff. They did it in Germany against Jews, but you know, dangerous.
Thank you, Jim. Barry, do you have the microphone there?
No,
Can,
I don't.
can you pass the microphone to Barry, please? Thank you.
6 or 7 years.
I
ago.
don't think it's on. Push down the button until it's blue. Somehow it got turned off. Hold it for 3 seconds.
See it turn on. Yeah, I guess we're out of juice.
Wow.
So you're gonna have to scream, speak up.
Or you can come
Anyway.
forward here and speak into the laptop. I guess our microphone,
I thought I charged it up after the meeting.
we
last
did
week.
charge
Maybe
it up,
didn't.
so I don't know what's going on.
About 7 years ago, I'm brand new to this organization, and I immediately became friends with Ron Powerty, who was going to an interfaith council meeting representing this group. So I went along with him just to see what it was all about. And everybody who came in the room was given a number, and then they called the number, and you're sitting at a table with 6 people, 6 strangers, explaining what your group is and why you're there. So I happened to be sitting next to a Muslim cleric, and he asked me what humanism's all about. Well, I was brand new. I couldn't give him an intelligent answer, but I showed him one of those cards where it says we're made up of atheists, agnostics, non-believers, and so on and so forth. And when he saw the word atheists, his eyes popped out of his head. And he says to me, "Do you believe all this?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So he says to me, well, you're going to have to give me your phone number, your email address. And I said, why? And he says to me, well, you're on a wrong path and I'm going to do something about it. So trying to be respectful and trying to be a gentleman, I says to him, thank you for your offer, but no thank you. And he didn't want to hear it. So I just looked him right in the eye and I says to him, you're a goddamn idiot. And I walked away from him.
Thank
End
you,
of
Barry.
story.
Yes, thank you, Barry.
Linda, you're next.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, you know, from this top-down approach that, you know, in the past week we've heard Vice President Vance express the wish that his wife would convert to Christianity. I thought that's just really the essence of intolerance.
Yeah, I heard that, and a lot of people are jumping on that because it's not going to look good for him to have I think she's a Buddhist, maybe?
No, she's a Hindu.
She's a Hindu. Thank you, Diane. She's a Hindu.
She should divorce his ass.
Irene, you're next, and then Doreen.
I just wanted to add a word of caution to those who think the best way to go forward and to avoid conflict with ultra-religious people is to stay silent, but I surely hope that those same people are not staying silent on the political front, because we all know the famous quote, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, and women. So I just hope that we do continue to confront the horror that's happening all around us. Thank you.
Well, I think we saw the turnout at the last October 18th rally was just an amazing, sent a message, amazing messages. And I hope people are paying attention.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and I think these are going to build over time. People are not being silent. They're not being silent at all. And that's really heartwarming. It gives me hope. And I loved seeing it. Let's go to Doreen and then Joe and then Francis. Okay, Doreen.
My comment was to Irene, actually. Do you think that your sister is pushing this, like doing it more just to annoy you? And another thing is, when she starts saying grace, say the little yum yum good grub thanks God thing right as she's doing it, and then it's done. And maybe she will get the point. Every time that she starts, say it.
Now I'm a firm believer that, you know, my house, my rules, so I'm not going to tread on.
Yeah.
I get free room and board.
Ah,
Yeah, guest. She's a guest.
that's true.
Can you pass the microphone? Oh, no, we don't have a microphone. Do you want to come up, Joe? You feel comfortable doing that?
I'll try to speak up. Basically, I'm afraid that I don't think it matters very much what we do. I don't think we're headed towards a very good time in 10 years. I grew up in a family where my parents were German immigrants. And I could never understand, how could the Germans possibly allow Hitler to take power? How could they possibly have done that? And now I'm seeing the same thing in my own country. It doesn't look good. But I had a conversation with a cousin of mine about a week ago. And he says he's just casually religious. But it was interesting, just hearing him talk, it was obvious he was assuming that because I was non-religious, we wanted to take away his religion, maybe convert his children. So I think the Christian faith puts so much of an emphasis upon converting people that they assume we're out to convert them. And I guess all we can do is let them know that we're not anti-religious, we're pro-humanism. What did resonate with my cousin is when I said, all we're asking is that no one group gets special privilege. And then he seemed he could buy into this. That makes sense. But
Yeah.
I said, I'm not, it's not my nature to be bullied to begin with. I don't see a good 10 years coming, and I do hope I'm wrong.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Francis, you're gonna need to come up here too, because our microphone apparently is kaput.
Well, I'm learning about how not to be a doormat. Because I was brought up not to make waves, you know, as a good Catholic girl. And believe it or not, I grew up pretty meek and mild, but thanks to you guys. But we had maybe Frankie Weinstein from the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. Boy, is his work cut out for
Isn't
him,
it
right?
Mickey?
He goes by Mikey.
Mikey.
And Mike, yeah.
Oh, okay. Mikey.
So I don't think he's ever been a doormat in his life, but he's an inspiration to me because he's in danger all the time in his house. He has guards,
I think the microphone's working.
No, she's sitting here. That's why you can hear her.
I hear scratching.
I do too. I do too.
Really?
He's got Dobermans, so so what I'm thinking, the way I was with this woman and the cat carcass. So I have a neighbor and a couple other people who try to proselytize to me, and I will try to push back gently, but they seem fragile to me when I push, like when I ask too many questions. And finally they come to the point where they're going to have a new body and everything's going to be okay. And when they start talking like that, I realize I'm not feeling fragile about death, and they are. And their relationship with death is just different than ours, I guess. And so I'm not going to push that, but I do believe that this is an unusual time, and like the Military Religious Freedom Foundation people and us, we have to not push back, but take a stand. I think is where we have to
stand up.
We have to stand up.
Thank you, Francis. Yeah, Mikey Weinstein actually did Joe knows him, and he actually did a presentation a couple of years ago, and he described to us some of the harassment that he has received, threats to his life. You know, he sticks up for, he's an attorney who sticks up for military not having to be coerced into religion in our country. So in the various branches of the military. And Francis mentioned he has Dobermans. He actually had these people who were threatening him. Many people have threatened him, threatened his family. But one day he went outside of his front door and they had killed his dog and left its head on his front porch. That's the kind of thing that this guy has put up with in his life, and he
Good
fights.
Christians.
He fights on. Francis, I'm sorry, Juanita, you're up next, and then Joe has his hand up again, which is great. Juanita, go ahead.
One of the things that I'm concerned about is all the funding for our schools is, in our county anyway, is going into religious. People say they're homeschooling and they're doing or sending them to these religious schools. And, you know, we have no control over that kind of education. So I'm just wondering when a good, you know, the Satans have stood up, but that's not like the Muslims standing up, or, you know, once they have a religious school and start taking this funding, I'm waiting for that. But they probably are too vulnerable in our communities anyway, so they're not going to do that. But, you know, somehow this needs to stop, and I hope they're going to take this to court.
When you say Satan's, you're referring to the Satanic Temple?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the Satanic Temple, who threatens to step in and do their own programs and establish their own religious programs based on the Satanic Temple, which actually a lot of their values are very similar to ours if you read through them, but the way
they
they
are.
market themselves, it scares the heck out of people. Joe, do you want to come up?
Wonder if that's in our state. Are they around here somewhere?
I think they have sent intentions to the legislature. Go ahead, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say, Mikey Weinstein, it's very interesting. Most of the people in the military who come to him for help and complain about what's happening are not non-religious people. They are religious people, Christians saying, I love my religion, but I'm told it's the wrong religion by these conservative people. So the conservative religionists have a real stronghold in the military. And it's interesting, most of the people complaining against them are either Jewish or Christian, or they belong to some other religion.
Good, interesting point, Joe. Thank you for sharing. All right, any last comments?
Any last words?
A good discussion,
Excellent.
I think we feel a little better armed, at least if we run across any dead animals on a road. I shouldn't make light of it, but it's an interesting transaction or interesting situation that you wouldn't think would come up, right? But it did. Does anybody have any humanist sharing moment? Anything going on in your life that you want to let people know? Barry, back up. The exercise is good for you. And then Francis.
It's not really a humanist sharing moment, but it's a continuation of what we were talking about. I'd like to tell a quick little story. I have a neighbor who's a born-again Christian. Knowing this, I never discuss religion with them because it's an argument or a discussion, it's not going to be any winners or losers. But despite the fact he's a born-again Christian, he's basically a good guy and a good neighbor, and we've done each other favors. A couple of years ago, he calls me up, tells me he needs a favor. He's having a committee meeting at his house. He knows I have a big driveway. I could put 4 cars in there. Can some of his guests park in my driveway for about an hour and a half? Says, yeah, no problem. So they did. And 6 weeks goes by. He asked me a second time, could his guests park in my driveway? And I said, yes. Well, I went out to take out the garbage. One of his guests was coming to retrieve his car. And he says to me, you must be Barry. I am. Well, Bob speaks very highly of you. I said, thank you. It's very Christian of you to let us use your driveway. Well, when he said that, I couldn't let it go by. So I says to him, come here, I want to show you something. And I take him over to my front door and I show him a mezuzah on the door. For those of you who don't know what a mezuzah is, it's something Jewish people put on a door. It's a little metal box with a prayer in it. So I explained to him what it is. And now I could see him looking for my horns because, I'm one of those. And I says to him, besides being Jewish, I'm also a humanist. You know what that is? He said, no. And at this point, the guy I could see him walking away, going, trying to figure out what just happened. And in my little warped mind, I thought that was hysterical.
So that mezuzah,
So
when
do
you
I.
walk through the door, you're supposed to tap it or rub it or something like that?
Yeah, well, you're supposed to figuratively touch it and touch your lips and kiss it.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I saw that in the Fiddler on the Roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the closest I get. That sort of thing. Thank you.
Nice tradition, though, to have a mezuzah, that you open your heart to go in and be kind and loving and go out into the world every time you pass. So
Right.
I thought it was
It's a good thing.
Our own Diane educated me with something a while back with the mezuzah. I always thought it had a 10 commandments in it, and she corrected me and told me what's in it, a particular prayer, and I looked it up, and she was 100% right.
That happens with
So
Diane.
my salute, Diane.
Francis, you wanted to say something?
What's the prayer in it?
What's the prayer in it? I don't know.
let's see. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Am I correct, Diane?
We're correct.
Okay, that's it. A nice, short and sweet. Francis, you wanted to say something?
No, I just wanted to ask if anybody knows an antiques appraiser they trust.
Does anybody know? Oh, this is your human steering woman.
Oh.
Does anybody know an antiques appraiser they trust?
I used to have an antique store.
Ah, so there's a trusty antique dealer right there.
I don't know.
Drew Blake, you have your hand up?
I think she's trustworthy.
I just wanted to share something that Barry reminded me of. I had a house I lived in for 38 years in California, and I sold it to my nephew. And I went to visit him, and on my front porch where I had lived for 38 years was a mezuzah, and he's not Jewish. At least apparently he converted to Judaism. And then within a couple years later, I see him. I belong to Freedom from Religion Foundation. He's an active member of Freedom from Religion. So I found that interesting. Things I didn't know about him at all. I mean, he used to come to our house when he was like 3, 4, 5 years old. And so I learned things about him I never knew before. But he's an active member of Freedom from Religion. And he says things on Facebook through Freedom from Religion that are even more anti-religious than I can be. So he amazed me. And he graduated Harvard, by the way.
Ah, you never know, do you?
You never know.
Joanne, can I finish with a quote from Christopher Hitchens that I just
Sure.
found on Facebook? The only position that leaves me with no cognitive dissonance is atheism. It is not a creed. Death is certain, replacing both the siren song of paradise and the dread of hell. Life on this earth, with all its mystery and beauty and pain, is then to be lived for more intensity. We stumble and get up. We are sad, confident, insecure, and lonely, and feel loneliness and joy and love. There is nothing more, but I want nothing more. Cool.
Those are good words. I'm going to do my own closing words too.
Oh, sorry.
But briefer. Anyway, next week, our program is called Alligators, Rattlesnakes, and Mosquitoes, Living with Our Spicier Florida Friends. And that's going to be presented by our own Diane Morgan. I think that's going to be a very good program. I hope you're going to be here for that.
You gotta do that.
And then Wednesday night, of course, we have our open topic, open discussion, Zoom only from 7 to 8 o'clock. Please join us for that. My closing words, although those were perfectly good closing words that you shared with us, Irene, thank you for that. Mine come from Coretta Scott King. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. So everybody, thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing your stories. We learn from each other every single time we get together.
What a great meeting.
Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon and a great rest of your week. And we'll see you again either on Wednesday or next Sunday. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, Doreen, let's check in with each other today or tomorrow, okay?
Whenever you got time.